Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Timeless Drama Stories. Before we begin today's story, I want to check in with you. How are you doing today? I hope you're finding a quiet moment for yourself. Maybe pour yourself a cup of tea or coffee, get comfortable, and give yourself permission to just listen for a while. We all need these moments, don't we? Today's story is a difficult one, but I think many of you will understand the emotions behind it. It's about family, about choices, and about what happens when the people who should have loved you unconditionally turn their backs on you at your most vulnerable moment. I was 21 years old when my parents sat me down at the kitchen table and told me I was no longer their daughter. My mother couldn't even look at me. My father's hands were shaking as he pushed an envelope across the table. Inside was $500 and a note that said, "This is all we can do for you. Don't contact us again." My crime? I was pregnant, and I refused to marry the father. His name was Derek, and he'd made it very clear he wanted nothing to do with me or the baby. My parents didn't care about that detail. In their minds, I had brought shame to the family. My mother kept saying, "What will people think? What will they say at church?" As if the opinions of near strangers mattered more than their own child. I remember standing on the sidewalk outside their house with one suitcase and that envelope. I was 3 months pregnant, nauseous every morning, and suddenly completely alone in the world. My younger sister Rachel watched from her bedroom window. She was 17 then. She didn't wave. She didn't cry. She just stared at me with this blank expression, then closed the curtain. That image haunted me for years. I won't lie to you and say the next few years were easy. They were the hardest years of my life. I found a women's shelter that took me in. The social worker there, Mrs. Chen, she was the first person who showed me real kindness in months. She helped me apply for assistance, helped me find a job cleaning offices at night. I was 6 months pregnant, scrubbing toilets at 2 in the morning, and sometimes I'd just sit on the bathroom floor and cry. But here's what I learned during those dark days. You discover what you're made of when you have no choice but to survive, and you learn who your real family is, and it's not always the people who share your blood. Mrs. Chen became like a mother to me. She was there when I went into labor. She held my hand through 23 hours of contractions when I thought I couldn't take anymore. And when my daughter Emma was born, tiny and perfect and screaming at the top of her lungs, Mrs. Chen cried right along with me. "You're going to be an amazing mother," she whispered. "Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." I kept that close to my heart during the sleepless nights, the struggles with diapers and formula, and trying to figure out how to be a parent when you're barely more than a child yourself. I worked 3 part-time jobs. I took classes at community college whenever I could scrape together the tuition and find someone to watch Emma. It took me 8 years to finish my degree in nursing, but I did it. Emma was 9 years old when I finally landed my first real job at Toronto General Hospital. Real benefits, a real salary. We moved into our own apartment, nothing fancy, but it was ours. Emma could have her own bedroom. I could buy groceries without calculating every penny. For the first time since my parents kicked me out, I could breathe. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had someone cut you out of their life, only to come back when they need something? Think about how that felt. Hold on to that feeling, because that's where this story takes a turn. Emma was 15 when my phone rang one Tuesday evening. I didn't recognize the number, but something made me answer. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe I'd been waiting for this call for 14 years, even though I didn't want to admit it. "Margaret?" The voice was older, shakier, but I knew it immediately. My sister Rachel. My hand started trembling so badly I almost dropped the phone. 14 years. Not a single word in 14 years, and now this. "Yes," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, distant and careful. "It's Rachel, your sister." As if I could have forgotten, "I need to talk to you about Mom and Dad." I sat down on the couch. Emma was in her room doing homework. I could hear her music playing faintly through the wall, completely unaware that the family who'd never acknowledged her existence was suddenly reaching out. "What about them?" I asked. Rachel took a deep breath. "Dad had a stroke 6 months ago. He needs full-time care now. Mom can't manage on her own anymore. She's got arthritis in both knees. They're struggling, Margaret. Financially, physically, everything." I waited. I knew there was more coming. "They want to see you," Rachel said. The words came out in a rush. "They want to apologize. They want to make things right." "Do they?" I asked. My voice was completely flat. "Or do they need something?" Silence on the other end. That told me everything. "We're family, Margaret," Rachel finally said. "Mom and Dad made mistakes, but they're getting old. They need help. They need you." "I needed them when I was 21 and pregnant and scared," I replied. "Where were they then?" "That was a long time ago." "Not to me, it wasn't." Rachel's voice took on an edge. "So you're just going to let them suffer? After everything they did for you growing up?" I actually laughed at that. It was a bitter sound. "Everything they did for me? You mean feeding and clothing me? The bare minimum required by law? Should I be grateful they didn't neglect me before they decided to abandon me?" "Margaret, please. Dad keeps asking about you. He wants to meet his granddaughter." And there it was. The real reason for the call. "Her name is Emma," I said. "And no, he doesn't get to meet her. He gave up that right when he handed me $500 and told me not to contact him again. He was angry then. He's different now. He's changed." "Has he?" I asked. "Or is he just old and scared and suddenly realizing he needs someone to take care of him?" Rachel was quiet for a moment. "Will you at least think about it? Come see them, just once. Hear them out." I should have said no right then. I should have hung up the phone and never looked back. But there was a small part of me, that scared 21-year-old who'd stood on the sidewalk with one suitcase, that still wanted to hear them say they were sorry, that still wanted some kind of acknowledgement that what they'd done was wrong. "I'll think about it," I said, and I immediately regretted the words. Over the next few weeks, Rachel called twice more. Each time, the pressure increased. "Mom's really struggling," she'd say. Or, "Dad's health is getting worse. If you wait too long, it might be too late." Classic manipulation. And I recognized it for what it was, but it still worked its way under my skin. Emma noticed I was distracted. She's always been perceptive, even as a little girl. One evening, she sat down next to me on the couch and said, "Mom, what's wrong?" I'd never hidden the truth from her. I'd told her, age-appropriately, about my parents and what had happened. I'd never wanted her to think their rejection had anything to do with her worth as a person. "My sister called," I said. "Your grandmother and grandfather, they want to meet." Emma's eyes widened. She was 15, old enough to understand the complexity of the situation. "What did you say?" I said I'd think about it. I don't know if that was the right answer. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Do you want to see them?" Did I? I'd spent 14 years building a life without them, proving to myself and maybe to them, even in their absence, that I could make it, that their rejection hadn't destroyed me. But had I really moved on, or had I just been running in place, always looking back over my shoulder? Part of me does, I admitted. Part of me wants to hear them say they were wrong. But another part of me knows that even if they do apologize, it won't change what happened. It won't give me back those years when I needed them. Emma put her hand on mine. "Then maybe you should go, just to know for sure. But Mom, whatever you decide, I'm with you. You don't need their approval. You never did." How did I raise such a wise daughter? Sometimes I think she got that from Mrs. Chen, who'd been more of a grandmother to Emma than my own mother could ever be. I finally agreed to visit them the following Saturday. Rachel gave me the address, their same house where I'd grown up, where I'd been told to leave and never come back. As Emma and I drove there, my hands were sweating on the steering wheel. "You okay, Mom?" Emma asked. "No," I said honestly, "but I'm doing it anyway." The house looked smaller than I remembered. The paint was peeling in places. The garden my mother had been so proud of was overgrown. I sat in the car for a full 5 minutes before I could make myself get out. Emma squeezed my hand. "I'm right here." Rachel opened the door before we could knock. She looked older, of course, but there was something else. Stress, maybe. Exhaustion. She glanced at Emma, and I saw the recognition in her eyes. The family resemblance was unmistakable. "Hi," Rachel said awkwardly. "Thank you for coming." They're in the living room. The house smelled different. Medicine and something else. Something stale. My parents were sitting on the same couch they'd had for 30 years. My father looked frail, one side of his face drooping slightly from the stroke. My mother's hands were gnarled with arthritis, resting in her lap. They both looked up when I walked in. My mother's eyes filled with tears immediately. "Margaret," she whispered. I stood there, Emma beside me, and waited. I wasn't going to make this easy for them. My father cleared his throat. His speech was slurred slightly, but understandable. "We're glad you came. We've wanted to reach out for so long." "Have you?" I asked. "I've had the same phone number for 8 years, same address for 6. You could have found me anytime you wanted to." My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. We were ashamed. We didn't know what to say. How about we're sorry? How about we were wrong? How about we should never have abandoned our daughter when she needed us most? The room went silent. Rachel shifted uncomfortably by the door. My father spoke next. "We made a mistake. We were thinking about what people would say, about our reputation. We weren't thinking about you." "You weren't thinking about me?" I repeated. "I was your child. Your daughter. And you threw me away like I was nothing." My mother was crying harder now. "We thought we were doing the right thing. We thought tough love would make you see reason, would make you do the responsible thing." "The responsible thing?" My voice rose. I was being responsible. I was keeping my baby. I was choosing to be a mother, even when the father wanted nothing to do with us. What was irresponsible about that? "You weren't married," my father said, and there was still a trace of that old judgment in his voice. And that's when I understood. They hadn't really changed. They'd just gotten old and desperate. "This is my daughter, Emma," I said, pulling her forward slightly. "Emma, these are your grandparents." Emma looked at them with those clear, assessing eyes that teenagers have. "Hello," she said politely, but with no warmth. My mother reached out a shaking hand. "Oh, you're so beautiful. You look just like Margaret did at your age." Emma didn't take her hand. She just nodded. The silence was excruciating. Finally, Rachel spoke up from the doorway. "Why don't we all sit down, talk properly?" I remained standing. "What is it you actually want?" I asked. "What's the real reason you asked me to come here?" My parents exchanged a glance. My father cleared his throat again. "We need help," he admitted. "The medical bills from my stroke, my ongoing care, your mother's treatments. We've been struggling. We thought, since you're a nurse now, since you're doing well." And there it was. The truth. Stripped of all pretense. "You want money," I said flatly. "We want family," my mother protested. "We want our daughter back." "No," I said. "You want someone to take care of you. You want someone to pay your bills. You want the daughter you threw away to come rescue you." "Margaret, that's not fair," Rachel interjected. I turned to her. "You want to talk about fair, Rachel? You stood at that window and watched them kick me out. You were 17, nearly an adult, and you did nothing. You said nothing. And for 14 years, you never called, never wrote, never tried to find out if I was even alive. Don't talk to me about fair." Rachel's face flushed. I was a kid. I didn't know what to do. You knew right from wrong. You just chose the easier path. My father tried to stand, but he couldn't quite manage it. Margaret, please. We're sorry. We're truly sorry. But we're family. Family takes care of each other. I felt Emma's hand slip into mine, grounding me. No, I said quietly. Family loves each other unconditionally. Family doesn't abandon you when things get difficult. Family doesn't show up after 14 years only because they need something. So you're just going to walk away? My mother asked. Leave us when we need you most? The irony was so thick I could taste it. That's exactly what you did to me, I said. The difference is, I was 21 and pregnant and terrified. You're adults who made choices and now have to live with the consequences. I started to turn toward the door, then stopped. There was one more thing I needed to say. For 14 years, I wondered if I was wrong. If maybe I should have tried harder to earn your love, to prove I was worth keeping. I worked 3 jobs. I put myself through school. I raised an incredible daughter who's kind and smart and everything a parent could want. And I did it all without you. My voice cracked slightly, but I pushed through. I used to think that maybe one day you'd see what you'd missed, and you'd regret what you'd done. But now I realize, you don't regret abandoning me. You regret that you can't use me anymore. Margaret, my mother sobbed. Please don't go. We're your parents. No, I said firmly. Parents are people who love you, who support you, who stand by you even when things are hard. You were just the people who raised me until I became inconvenient. Emma and I walked to the door. Rachel was still standing there, tears streaming down her face. Margaret, wait, she said. I am sorry. I should have done something back then. I was scared and weak, and I'm sorry. I looked at her for a long moment. I believe you're sorry, I said. But sorry doesn't erase 14 years. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you only called when you needed something. We left. As we walked to the car, I heard my mother crying inside, heard Rachel trying to comfort her. Part of me, that small part that still remembered being their daughter, wanted to go back, wanted to fix things, to make everyone happy. But Emma squeezed my hand, and I kept walking. In the car, I sat gripping the steering wheel, not starting the engine. Emma watched me, waiting. Did I do the right thing? I asked her. Mom, she said. You did the strong thing. And yes, I think it was right. They're old, I said. They're struggling. Part of me feels guilty. They made choices, Emma said. You told me that once when I was upset about my father not being around. You said that everyone makes choices, and we're not responsible for fixing other people's bad choices. That's what you're doing now. You're not fixing their bad choice. When did my daughter become so wise? I started to cry, right there in the car. Emma hugged me while I sobbed out 14 years of pain and anger and hurt. And then, slowly, I felt something else. Relief. Freedom. The weight I'd been carrying, the weight of wondering if I should try to reconnect, if I owed them something, if blood really was thicker than water, it lifted. Over the next few weeks, Rachel called twice more. The first time, she tried guilt. Dad's health is declining faster now. He's giving up. He needs family around him. He has you, I said. He made his choice about who his family was 14 years ago. The second time she called, her voice was angry. How can you be so selfish? So heartless? They're your parents. Heartless? I repeated. Rachel, I was 21 and 3 months pregnant when they threw me out. I spent nights in a shelter. I cleaned toilets while 6 months pregnant just to survive. I raised Emma on my own, put myself through nursing school, built a good life. And now, because they need me, I'm supposed to forget all of that and come running? Yes, she shouted. Because that's what family does. No, I said calmly. That's what enablers do. That's what people with no boundaries do. I'm not responsible for fixing their mistakes or supporting them through the consequences of their choices. She hung up on me. I haven't heard from her since. Emma asked me a few days later if I thought I'd ever regret my decision. We were having dinner, just the two of us, the way it had always been. Maybe, I admitted. When they die, maybe I'll wish I'd tried to make peace. But I also know that any relationship we could have built would have been false. It would have been based on guilt and obligation, not love. What about forgiveness? Emma asked. Don't people always say you have to forgive? I thought about that for a moment. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean letting people back into your life who hurt you. I've forgiven them, in the sense that I'm not carrying around constant anger anymore. But forgiveness doesn't mean trust. It doesn't mean access. She nodded, processing that. Then she said something that made me realize just how much I'd succeeded as a mother. I'm glad I have you, Mom. I'm glad I grew up seeing you be strong, seeing you set boundaries. A lot of my friends, they let people walk all over them because they're afraid of being seen as mean or difficult. You taught me it's okay to protect yourself. I reached across the table and took her hand. You know what the hardest part of all this was? It wasn't the money struggles or the long hours or even the loneliness sometimes. It was wondering if I was doing right by you. If growing up without extended family, without grandparents and aunts and uncles who cared about you, was somehow my fault. Mom, Emma said firmly, we had family. We had Mrs. Chen. We had your coworkers who babysat me. We had our neighbors who looked out for us. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. And she was right. Mrs. Chen had been at every school play, every parent-teacher conference, every important moment. When Emma graduated from high school last year, Mrs. Chen was right there in the front row, crying proud tears. That's family. I thought about my parents sometimes, usually late at night when I couldn't sleep. I wondered if my father's health had declined further. I wondered if my mother was managing. I wondered if they ever truly understood what they'd done, or if they only understood that it had backfired on them. But I didn't call. I didn't reach out. Because the truth is, some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. And maybe that's okay. Maybe it's okay to acknowledge that some relationships are too damaged, too toxic, too one-sided to salvage. About 6 months after that visit, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Rachel. I almost threw it away without opening it, but curiosity got the better of me. The letter was short. Rachel wrote that Dad had passed away 2 months earlier. She didn't ask me to come to the funeral. She didn't ask for anything. She just thought I should know. At the end, she wrote, "For what it's worth, in his last few weeks, he talked about you a lot. He said he understood why you stayed away. He said he would have done the same thing." I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. I didn't cry. I didn't feel relieved. I just felt sad. Sad for what could have been, if they'd made different choices. Sad for Emma, who would never have known her grandfather. Sad for the relationship we could have had, if only they'd loved me enough to accept me when I needed them. But I also felt at peace, because I'd made the choice that was right for me and for Emma. I'd protected us from people who would have used us and then discarded us again when we were no longer convenient. I'd chosen my own well-being over their comfort, and that was okay. Let me ask you something, and really think about this. How many of you are holding onto relationships that hurt you, simply because society says family is everything? How many of you feel guilty for protecting yourself from people who've shown you, repeatedly, that they don't have your best interests at heart? There's this idea in our culture that blood family is sacred, that you owe them something simply because you're related. But I learned the hard way that DNA doesn't create obligation. Love does. Respect does. Consistent care and support do. And if those things aren't present, if the relationship is one-sided or toxic or manipulative, you have every right to walk away. Some of you might think I was too harsh, that I should have given them a second chance, that people can change, that I should have been the bigger person. And maybe you're right. Maybe in some alternate universe, I went back to that house. I took care of my aging parents. I played happy family and pretended the past didn't matter. But in this universe, I chose myself and my daughter. I chose the family we'd built, the family that had been there for us when we had nothing. I chose to teach Emma that she deserves to be treated with respect and love, not just when it's convenient for others, but always. Emma's in university now, studying to be a social worker. She wants to help people like we were helped, people who fall through the cracks, people whose families fail them. She's going to be amazing at it. And every time I look at her, I know I made the right choice. Mrs. Chen is still in our lives, of course. She's 83 now, and we see her every week for dinner. She's the grandmother Emma needed, the mother figure I needed. That's family. Not the people who share your DNA, but the people who show up, consistently, with love and support. As for my mother, I heard through Rachel's sparse updates that she's in a nursing home now. Rachel visits her sometimes, but it's strained. I think Rachel finally realized that being the good daughter who stayed and played by the rules didn't protect her from their judgment and criticism either. It just made her the convenient target. I don't wish them harm. I genuinely hope my mother has good care, that she's comfortable, that the end of her life has some peace in it. But I don't wish those things as a daughter. I wish them as one human to another, with the distant compassion you'd show any stranger. Because that's what they chose to be to me. Strangers. And I've made my peace with that. So here's what I want you to take away from my story. You don't owe anyone access to your life, not even family, especially not family who've hurt you. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. You can forgive someone and still maintain boundaries. You can wish someone well and still keep them at arm's length. And most importantly, you get to choose your family. You get to decide who deserves a place in your life, who's earned the right to your time and energy and love. Don't let anyone guilt you into accepting less than you deserve, not even in the name of blood. Emma's graduation from high school, that was one of the proudest moments of my life. She gave a speech as valedictorian, and she talked about family and resilience. She said, "My mom taught me that family isn't about who's obligated to love you. It's about who chooses to. Every single day." I cried through the whole thing. Mrs. Chen held my hand and cried too. And I realized that we'd done it. Against all odds, despite being abandoned and struggling and having to build everything from nothing, we'd created something beautiful. A family based on choice and love and mutual respect. That's worth more than any blood connection could ever be. Thank you for listening to my story today. I know it wasn't an easy one, but I hope it resonated with some of you, especially those of you who've struggled with similar situations. Remember, you're allowed to protect yourself. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to choose peace over obligation. Now, I think I need another cup of tea after all that. I hope wherever you are, you're taking care of yourself too. Until next time, remember that you're stronger than you think, and you deserve to be surrounded by people who truly love you. Take care of yourselves, everyone.